what I was gonna say is the last time Hugo was dressed in a dictator's tracksuit, a Latin American dictator's tracksuit. Today he looks like he's getting parachuted into Crimea to capture.
And you will never know what side. Actually, I'm sabotaging in China's name or some shit.
Yeah, let's see a patch on the arm too. That would
it's kind of close. That's why I really fuck with it. Man, this is deep Balkan Wars lore, and it always surprises me just how knowledgeable Hakeem is.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was there.
It just.
Exactly right.
Okay, that would be a.
Who do you think was running guns to Milosevic?
Also, you were on that side. Okay, I was like, you never know, know. But
Hugo always waited till he landed to decide which side he was on.
Yeah, that's when we actually met. Like we were handlers for different organizations and different sides in that fucked up war. But we all abandoned our agencies and we started this private military podcast.
Exactly right.
And JT is our like OG new handler that left the CIA, so he's like I'll help you guys with the organization, because as we all know, organizing a podcast is far harder than an actual private military corporation. But hey, then again, our plane hasn't been shot out of the sky yet, alluding to one legendary fail son of last year.
What a shame, honestly. No, not that he was shot out. It's
because
such a shame.
The lore could have been better. The lore,
right? Like he was definitely going down some Metal Gear. Like,
he was really in a movie. He was like completely in a movie. He was fully living a movie script. He's like, I'm gonna take down the government. Then I'm not, but I'm gonna
go fight in Africa.
Okay,
Venom Snake. Okay. Oh my God.
But speaking of war, JT, who are you gonna side with? The Canadians or the Americans in the incoming invasion? I don't know.
Look, we ain't got no cavalry anymore. The best we got is Texas. We got the
which crackers are you deciding?
Yeah, look, they have moose cavalry. We don't stand a chance.
It's kind of scary. Have you seen that fucking moose? They're fucking huge. Terrifying shit, bro. Yeah.
Yeah, I was in Alaska. Where was I? Anchorage for part of a documentary shoot. And we just went for a bike ride one afternoon when we didn't have anything to do. And so we were going on this trail, and a moose wanders out of the woods across the trail. And I was like, that's the biggest beast I've ever seen. You don't realize how big those things are. They are scary. On that one,
brother. Holy fucking shit, brother.
Yeah.
Do they actually have dicks as big as horses? Do they or not?
Moose?
Because always when it's like four legs and it's like high, it's big dick. But then like the monkeys, not the monkeys, the donkeys have like the biggest cocks, but they're tiny. Yeah. Don't you know donkey dick? Like that's.
I don't know. Oh, that's where that expression comes from.
Yeah.
What is the average size of an adult moose's penis? Let's look.
Okay. How much is it?
Hakeem's gonna drop pictures in the chat.
Exactly. All right. Comparing moose to horses.
Okay.
58 to 67 centimeters is the estimation
for a moose.
But but
how much is a horse cock? I know how much JT's is, but
what can I say?
Oh my penis analyzer, penis of moose. What the? What have I?
What are you doing?
What have I stumbled upon?
Just tell us about the horse.
Exactly.
Yeah, listeners, chat. Like, where are you on the scale of cock from simple gorilla to horse? Okay.
What is cool, Hakeem?
Penisanalyzer.com basically, if you write moose penis, it does like this early 1980s vector rendering of what a moose cock looks like. It shows shaft curve, glans angle, expansion rate. What the fuck is this? I love this.
Like, by the way, why are we the only ones that are kind of like semi fucked? Or maybe I'm being unscientific here. Biologists and zoologists in chat tell us with humans, like dick variation can vary like a pretty decent amount. You have the standard, but then it can vary. But all the animals, they all got same dick.
Really? Surely there's variation.
That's the big question now. Is there variation as well?
Hakeem?
No, there's definitely variation.
You think so?
Yeah. By the way, per size of for our general size human beings, we have oversized penises for the size of animal that we are, which is interesting to know.
Bless up.
Especially you boys, if you know.
Exactly right. Anyways,
But he's bitching out of the fucking question, dude. Who do you fight for? Canada or the United States of America? It's difficult to choose.
It's a difficult question. I have no loyalty to the United States of America in Minecraft, dear handler. But also Canada's cold, and I really don't like the cold.
But if Canada wins, they take over everything. You get free healthcare. That's not.
And I get to say
and
sorry.
blackface.
Oh, okay. Canada
That
is.
one left. Canada is woke again. Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of the Deprogram. Before we begin, we would like to say thank you to all our wonderful patrons, without whom none of this would be possible. If you are considering supporting this show, where we talk about cocks, politics, cocks, and politics, what even is the difference, one might ask? Do consider checking out the link below, grabbing a lot of brilliant benefits, and helping us fill the content trough. Now, welcome to an eternal Deprogram classic. Reading out the news and talking about it. This does not exist anywhere else on the internet except here, so you're very welcome for this original idea. Let us start out with Canada, since we already touched on it. It just had its January 6th moment. Castro's least favorite son, Hakeem, least favorite son. His favorite son. That's why I'm wearing a mask. I literally look like Castro. Okay. Justin Trudeau resigned on January 6th, 2025, which, by the way, do you think that was intentional? Like, come on. January 6th, really? Like, exactly then?
January 6th is totally ruined for anything else now. Like, I have a friend whose kid was born, like they did what's it called? Induction on January 6th, and the mother didn't realize it until later when the dude's like, hell yeah, insurrection baby.
Yeah, brother.
Yeah, and people are like, wait, isn't Trump taking office today on January 6th? They're like, no, not yet. So it'll go down in history as one of them days.
One of them.
So
days.
I wouldn't be surprised if he did it on purpose, just for fun.
Yeah. I mean, it was almost a decade that he was in power, and this current switch kind of is signaling a relative turning point for the Canadian Liberal Party in particular, and the country's political landscape as a whole. By changing, obviously we are a slightly leftist podcast, I think some people said. So yeah, things will basically remain the same, but will slowly get worse because, most likely a very large shit will be replaced by a massive shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, struggling under mounting public dissatisfaction and consistently poor polling, Trudeau's departure marks the end of a tenure defined by performative reformism constrained within neoliberal boundaries. His exit leaves behind a faltering party facing a surging conservative opposition led by Pierre. Yes, a guy named Pierre.
Of course.
Who holds a commanding 20-point lead, bro, in the polls. So yeah, that guy's winning.
Yeah.
I don't think I need to be a political scientist, which I am, but
good.
to guess that guy's winning. But yes, let's do a small recap of what happened, and our Canadian listeners can correct me if I'm wrong about anything. Trudeau's leadership, once lauded internationally for its progressive rhetoric, kept it just there in rhetoric. They failed to deliver substantial change on many key issues such as climate policy, housing affordability, and obviously inequality that he really harped on back in the day. While he did introduce a national carbon tax, Canada remains the only G7 country to have increased carbon emissions since 1990.
Really?
Let me just kind of butt in on this. My favorite part about all of this is that Justin Trudeau would regularly show up at climate protest as one of the people in the protest. And
somebody should do something about this.
I'm like, you're the fucking guy. You're the guy.
I love that. Oh, that's my
sometimes even
favorite.
wearing traditional Native American headdresses and stuff.
Yeah.
Absolute,
Jesus Christ. Yeah.
absolute G. By the way,
He's just-
in his blackface thing, I literally I was like, okay, I'm not getting who he's trying to be. And Hakeem, I know who he was trying to be.
Yeah,
but I'm looking at him like, okay, like my racism expertise wasn't on par. So it's like he's doing blackface, but he's not wearing something that like a racist that was doing an African would wear.
Yeah.
And then I found that it's the exact same costume that Aladdin wears at some point in the movie when he becomes a higher member of society. Yeah. But then, also my I'm like, if you're gonna do racism, do it right. Why the fuck you so black? Like brownish face? Like they can't even do the racism correctly is what I'm saying. Okay, classic white boy behavior.
Exactly. Their calipers aren't as finely tuned as mine.
no one's calipers are, Hakeem. Look, Trudeau just loves cultures, all cultures. Okay, he's done blackface, he's done green face, he's done chartreuse face. Like he's just done all the faces, and you got to respect him for that, right? You know.
Didn't he do a YouTube video recently? He did like a YouTube sit-down apology or something.
Are you serious?
Yeah, he did one of those. But it wasn't an apology. It was about the flow of immigrants to Canada, because Canada, per percentage of population, gets it's like a ridiculous amount of immigrants for how small of a population-wise of a country it is. And he kind of was like, oh yeah, the past couple of years maybe it was a bit much. But he had like this sit-down, like Johnny Harris, where he comes and walks over to the chair, sits down, puts out a long sigh. Yeah.
Our president is
like
a
what I
YouTuber.
do.
We're so
But the thing is that you're not the fucking prime. You're not trying to fake authenticity. This is a manicured thing you're presenting.
Yeah.
And by the way, he got blasted. Of course, he got fucking blasted. I think Trump is the only person who could pull that off. Yeah. Like both ironically and unironically.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, he wasn't only posting cringe YouTube videos. Housing prices in cities like Toronto and Vancouver have completely fucking soared. The rich have obviously gotten richer by beyond any previously held record during his tenure. These failures, coupled with Pierre's ability to position the carbon tax as a scapegoat for rising living costs, have eroded any liberal standing with general voters. Trudeau's decision now basically creates a window for the Liberals to hold a leadership race. However, the party's future appears bleak, with internal division and a likely shift rightward to counter Pierre's populist momentum. I mean, talk about classics. This time we didn't even need to cut them,
a gridlocked parliamentary system with a steady shift rightward.
Good thing it's only happening in Canada.
Yeah, exactly right.
Predicted this.
Hell.
Anyways, political analysts suggest that Trudeau's successor will face an uphill battle, with defeat in the next election all but certain. So let's ask, who's going to take the fall, right? Amongst the most prominent candidates for the Liberal leadership is Chrystia Freeland from the Freeland of Canada. The former finance minister and deputy prime minister, Freeland's dramatic resignation back in December 2024, citing policy disagreements with Trudeau, was widely seen as a prelude to her leadership bid. Known for her hawkish stance on military spending and unwavering support for Ukraine, Freeland advocates fiscal austerity at home while championing increased military expenditures abroad. Her departure, her departure highlighted tensions within the party itself, with Freeland criticizing Trudeau's proposed short-term economic relief measures as costly political gimmicks. Like the one semi-decent thing the guy wanted to kind of do, too little, too late. But she's even like, too little, too late. Also, please don't do it because I hate poor people. Another likely contender is Mark Carney, the former governor of the Bank of Canada and Bank of England. Carney, who lacks electoral experience, is seen as a technocrat embodying the global elite, a characterization the Conservatives are poised to exploit. And while Carney has hinted at fiscal restraint and criticized reflexive government spending, his policy platform remains very kind of like vague, leaving questions about if he even has any vision for the party. And third, but not least, we have Christy Clark, a former premier of British Columbia, who is also rumored to be in the mix. Unlike Freeland and Carney, Clark is not this is going to be very difficult for the audience. So unlike the Freeland and Carney are the previous two chuds, right? Clark, the current chud that we're talking about, the ex-premier, she is not tied to Trudeau's administration, which could work in her favor. However, her tenure as BC's premier has been marked by very hardcore right-wing policies, including welfare cuts, tax reductions, and increasing instability in the job market, reflecting a neoliberal approach that aligns more with the Conservatives than with the already rightoid federal Liberals. There's a few more options, but these three are probably who you're gonna be seeing more on your TV screens. And to kind of cut it off, I guess Trudeau's resignation and the Liberals' leadership race underscores the growing crisis facing these status quo centrist parties globally. The inability to address very real social and economic challenges has left such parties with two options. Either become more right-wing to cater to the reactionary masses born out of capitalism-induced crisis, or slowly fall apart. The Liberal Party's expected rightward pivot under its new leader is pretty much guaranteed. Unless something impressive happens, Canada's future looks like austerity, jingoism, and austerity.
I was going to say one little thing about this, and this is something that I find funny with all these relatively... I don't want to say small countries. Canada is a large country by landmass, but by population, it's like, 40 million people, right? Iraq has a larger population than Canada, right? When it comes
Texas is pretty close, Jesus.
Exactly, yeah. Like, when you think about these things, if you're thinking about a military, particularly...
Their mooses have big cocks, though, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. When you're thinking about being, like, so close to the United States, who is the biggest warmonger to ever exist, what are you preparing for exactly? You're preparing to just kind of like be an adjunct to the wider NATO network, right? For that, you need, like, you either specialize in something very specific, like certain NATO countries do, right? Like certain manufacture of weapons and whatnot, or systems, or you're just like kind of the cannon fodder, or you're just like a token member, like Lithuania with its 16 soldiers, right? What the fuck is Canada gonna do with increased military expectancy? All you're gonna do is buy weapons from the United States. This is... It's so fucking short-sighted, and
borderline treasonous to an extent, because they're mostly buying guns from the Americans that they're sending to different battlefields. Sure, they produce a little bit, but it's mostly all money going to Americans. And you're giving a pitch, why are we giving this to the welfare queens? Because that's like losing money for the nation, and yet you're just feeding the neighboring nation that's already got you cucked. Like,
which is why Canada should become our 51st state.
So he did make a decision. Okay, so you did make
I'm siding with
decision.
I'm siding with both. I'm playing it smart. I side with Canada, but as the 51st state. He's not going to get... Canada's not going to become the 51st state. If anybody in the audience is wondering, Canada's not going to become part of the U.S., neither is Greenland. If it does, you think so?
I don't think so. It's just... like Trump's son just went there.
Yeah.
Unironic. Like, I don't know. It's probably like
it's shit stirring. It's shit stirring.
I will eat my shoe live if either of those becomes part of the U.S.
This is like them. This is like him taking back Panama, the Panama Canal, or
the Gulf of America.
Yeah, this is all just like posturing and very clear distractions. Because if you look at American news, this stuff has been plastered everywhere. Right. Literally everywhere. Yeah. This has overshadowed the fucking fires. Right, these stupid comments of his, but we can get to that. JT, do you want to jump to yours?
Sure. Let me give you some notable Trump cabinet picks so we can all be properly excited for the incoming administration. So it shouldn't come as any surprise that the revolving door between lobbying groups and the federal government has continued. But Trump also he's got that juice, that special something, that panache which means that, yes, we get a Wall Street exec as the Commerce Secretary, but we also get Linda McMahon, a wrestling executive, as the Secretary of Education. So if you guys aren't familiar, you may recognize the name McMahon from one Vince McMahon, the co-founder of WWE and the world's most well-known promoter of fake wrestling. Sorry to burst your bubble, friends. It is not real. I've had some.
Wow.
I had some friends back in the day who were convinced it was real. I'm like, how?
When you were 12, though, right?
No, this was like in college. I'm like, Mike,
No.
have you watched any of it? Like, anyway, maybe it was a bit. Maybe they were doing a bit. I don't know. But you might just know Vince McMahon from the memes at this point. If you're not familiar, I'll put a couple of the memes on screen. But anyway, his estranged wife, Linda, has been chosen to lead the Department of Education, which is a weird choice in general because she has exactly zero experience. In fact, not only does she not have any experience, she also lied about having experience. So Linda sat on the Connecticut Board of Education for 1 year in 2009. And this wasn't because she was qualified, but because she had donated $5 million and ran a campaign putting WWE stars on children's bookmarks in some, vague campaign of fighting illiteracy or something. There's no real campaign. She just printed some bookmarks with The Undertaker on them. But when she took the position, she filled out a vetting questionnaire about her background. And she stated that she had earned a degree in education from East Carolina University in 1969, yeah. But it came out that this was a lie, and she had actually gotten a degree, Hakeem, plug your ears, in French. So, I'm very sorry.
Oh my God!
But a local paper told her that they were going to run the story about her lying on the thing, and she resigned 24 hours later. And she claimed that there was no relationship between the two. Obviously, there was. Linda has also faced significant criticism over the years by actual educators, with Connecticut's House Education Committee saying, quote, "She had no involvement whatsoever in education. She's made tens or hundreds of millions of dollars pushing violence and sexualization of young women. She was a real force for doing ill to kids in our country." So they weren't exactly thrilled with her. Didn't pull many punches there. So with all this in mind,
just to give you context, internationally, the biggest boogeyman of all time for every single teacher, every single school, for a continuous period of at least 2 years when I was a kid. I can talk about the entirety of the Balkans in this case. WWE and wrestling was literally the big bad. It was our rock and roll metal music scare. It was the kids are gonna watch that, gonna fight each other. But then ironically, a lot of kids did. So there was legs being broken all the time, arms being broken. Would wrestle I would wrestle like fucking crazy, thinking that was real. So nothing happens. Look at them; they all stand up, etc., etc. Now, I'm not shit talking wrestling or WWE, far from it. I'm just saying that it's hella crazy to me from my context. So from my context, I grow up, when I'm a kid, education, in primary school, the big bad is WWE. Now I'm an adult, the United States, the wealthiest country to ever exist. The education minister, becomes somebody who participated in creating the
WWE.
biggest bad for educators ever, in my experience as a child going through the education system. I'm like, whoever writes this, please continue. It's a bit cliche, but
America is falling. Millions must wrestle.
That's going to be so fun. Oh, we're in for such a good time. But anyway, all that stuff in mind, it's pretty apparent why Trump picked her, right? He doesn't care about any of the qualifications or anything except, he's appeared on WWE too, and he thinks that's really cool. So he's repeatedly asserted that he's going to shut down the Department of Education, right, and relegate schooling matters to individual states, which of course will be disastrous. Have you seen Florida? So picking a completely unqualified entertainment mogul to spearhead the dismantling was actually a pretty good move. You claim that the government does something poorly, you cut funding and put your incompetent lackey in charge, the office performs poorly, and you point to that as evidence that you were right. We see this all the time with the privatization of public services. So think the NHS in the UK and the Postal Service in the US. Those are two pretty clear examples. But moving on from her, speed round here. Other picks include white supremacist and Fox News host Pete Hegseth for Secretary of Defense. Yeah, that guy rocks. Wall Street billionaire Howard Lutnick.
Sorry.
He's so cringe too.
That's the steroid guy, right? He's the big buff.
That doesn't narrow it down.
Oh,
he's pretty lean, I would say.
Okay.
I don't think he's a steroid guy, but
the guy whose mom said that even she hates how he treats women.
Oh, okay. I
didn't know that part.
Really?
I hadn't heard that. No. You got Wall Street billionaire Howard Lutnick for Commerce Secretary. You've got a fracking CEO Chris Wright for Energy Secretary. A hedge fund manager Scott Bessent for Treasury Secretary. Elon Musk as the co-chair of the Department of Government Efficiency.
No, you gotta say it. You
Doge.
Yes!
Which will likely just be a room full of printed iFunny memes and coloring books.
A majlis of clowns. This is fucking a circus.
Yeah, but at least no more Matt Gaetz, right? Credibly accused pedophile and sex trafficker. He was up for Secretary of State before he was forced to drop out.
It's okay. He's been substituted. the position of head child Hitler has been handed to somebody else.
God damn
Don't
it.
worry.
Yeah, someone. But anyway, all in all, a beautiful rainbow of the best and brightest minds the United States has to offer. And I, for one, cannot wait to see how life will improve in the coming 4 years.
And you're telling me with a cabinet so insane, there isn't even a slightest chance of something additionally insane happening, like troops rolling through Greenland. I know it's not going to happen, but I can absolutely see it happen. I can't expect, because look at everything.
Yeah.
Everything is insane. So like, what's another insane thing? You know?
I think. And inshallah, but
Censor the shit out of that.
We're getting close, but we're not there yet. I don't think the U.S. population is there yet. Give it 10 years.
Ooh.
Give it 10 years, and I reckon, yeah.
So it will come a Fulton you from.
Yeah, please send a helicopter. But
this is episode 1800 of the Deprogram. I am reporting from the
live
front.
The third Buc-ee's has fallen.
Extracting JT bonus episode.
and me and Hakeem are like
patrons.
streaming at you from a club. We're just dancing.
Oh my God, love that.
We're standing on the remains of the last Arby's in Wichita, Kansas. They no longer have the meats. What they do have is a mass grave.
Our culture has fallen.
Yeah.
Can't wait for those the new second thoughts here afterwards. It's just going to be domestic terrorism 101. Oh my God. All right. Moving on from these lovely little tidbits. The most recent blow to the strange project that is the EU has taken place, and that is the end of cheap Russian gas flowing to EU countries because the transit across Ukraine has been stopped. This is a development that has been discussed over the past couple of months, but it's finally come to pass in this early January period. For those who are unaware, Russia is a significant and huge gas and oil and electricity producer just generally, and because of all this, it exports this to Europe. There's several pipelines. There's the Brotherhood one and the Yamal one, and then of course there was the Nord Stream 1 and 2. Okay, 2 was blown up by
Who can say?
Absolutely, no zero evidence as to who could have been, except the very clear geopolitical geostrategic benefit to one country.
Who had a boat full of operatives there the day before.
Yeah, exactly. Like completely. The only if they streamed it, it would be less.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, my favorite thing is there are all these names of the various pipelines. One of them feels very kind of slightly racist. It's Turk Stream. It's the one that goes to Turkey from Russia.
Fucking Turkey, right?
I know, but I don't know why it sounds racist to me. Turk Stream sounds a little racist.
I mean,
the other one was Nord Stream. Why couldn't they call it South
you.
Stream?
Yeah. But that's because your association with Turk as a fellow person.
Let's wait, okay, Mister. All right. There's more Turk blood in you than me.
No, not that. Jesus, no. I was doing the opposite, you piece of shit. I was like, the one thing we can relate to, both of us, we were under the Ottoman boot, blah, blah, blah. And you see, this is the problem. This is the problem.
Habibi, look, it's
the
okay.
True International cannot, no, this is not the problem. this is the opposite. One of the things that I can still quote to the fallen hero Zizek on is to get to absolute true friendship in between people of multiple nationalities is to get all the racially charged humor out of the fucking way immediately.
Absolutely.
So there's nothing like worse than that you can expect from the other guy.
Yeah.
Dude, like the first time I think I've ever like sent a video IRL, it was multiple years ago. I sent it on the Discord channel, and it's like after a wedding, a lot of people are singing and dancing, and JT is like, "Oh, that looks like a vibe," and Hakim's first answer is like, "Fucking mountain Turks." I was like, what the fuck? What the fuck? What?
Hey, many pleasant emojis followed that, by the way, just so people know.
This is why we're the best podcast on the left, folks.
Exactly right. Speaking of Turks, so we have the Nord Stream, we have the Roach Stream, or the bottom.
These guys own it?
He's still going.
I know, I'm kidding. Enough shit posting about. So essentially, what happened is that the pipeline was closed. And this is like more virtue signaling, posturing from mostly Ukraine and Poland, which are like, oh, we won't allow the Russians to benefit from our blood, blah blah blah. Despite the fact that Europe has been getting Russian gas since 1991, and it's never never seemed to have been an issue prior. But several countries stand to really lose in this. Moldova is one, Slovakia is one. Currently, as it stands, the only countries that still have a safe pipeline through like Turkey going to them is Turkey itself, Serbia, and Hungary. Funnily enough, so those are the countries that will not be affected by these developments so far. Some other countries have kind of defaulted on payments to Russia because they don't want to pay them. So Russia stopped sending gas of their own volition, but now the EU has put in these severe restrictions on imports of Russian gas, which has been steadily reducing since 2022. It was around 40%. Of EU imports were Russian gas. Now it's less than 10%. Thing is that they thought they're damaging or hurting Russia through this. There's two very big countries that Russia's close to. One of them, Russia shares a huge border with, and that's the People's Republic of China. And I don't know if you know, but the People's Republic of China needs a lot of natural gas. So basically, whoever wasn't buying gas in Europe, the Indians and the Chinese and a bunch of other Central Asian countries, so on and so forth, picked up the slack. So the talk of sanctions and limiting the income of Russia through natural gas and all that is kind of empty talk, being fully honest. But that hasn't stopped the propaganda drive of being like, oh no, this is a huge blow to Russia and all this mostly nonsense. Regardless, one development from this that is negative, or actually two. One of them is the fracturing of the EU a little bit. On this has been an important position because several countries who have weak economies generally, like Slovakia, have transit fees for this gas going through Slovakia, as an example, being a very important revenue source for them. Slovakia earns something like several hundreds of billions of dollars each year because the gas just flows through Slovakia, not because of anything else that they do. Of course, they have to pay maintenance on the pipelines and whatnot that goes through the land. But regardless, this is a huge income for an otherwise very bare bones economy, especially after the split between the Czech Republic and Slovakia, and also after the dissolution of their socialist order. Because of this, Slovakia has been very upset with the stopping of EU imports because this is basically kneecapping a very huge boon to their economy and their national budget. Several other countries are suffering in different ways. Germany, who's been fully for this nonsense as well, suffers because gas prices go up. But what's more important is that electricity prices go up because Germany refuses to have nuclear power because of various stupidity. We can enter into this discussion at different points. Competition between different capital interests in Germany that causes not because they don't like nuclear because of environmental policies. But regardless, when electricity prices go up in the largest economy in Europe, what ends up happening is production costs and all downstream products also go up. This is a very big problem because without the engine of the EU running, which is Germany, all other economies that are certainly the non-essential economies, quote unquote, outside of Germany, so outside of what used to be the UK, which is now left, but France and Belgium and the Netherlands and and Italy to a lesser extent. Outside of these, all the other countries are kind of just add-ons to what Germany produces. They kind of fund everything. Hugo is very familiar from the Balkan example. Everything that's produced of any worthwhile quality is just immediately sent to the rest of the EU, particularly Germany. What this means is that all industrial production has now gotten significantly more expensive to the point that everybody wants to leave Germany. They want to go to China. They want to go to Malaysia. They want to go to wherever the fuck else, or even the United States. They just don't want to stay in Germany because everything's so expensive. Germany
turns out there's no patriotic capitalists. Who would have fucking thunk?
Exactly right. Which is another subsequent issue because Germany is so politically fragmented as it currently is. And the populist anti-immigrant politics currently going on are a very, it's a powder keg waiting to explode. This is not beneficial for, the consequences of this decision will ripple through the next couple of years and decades. And they like to bullshit but we have alternative streams of energy coming to us. Do you know who they're from? They're from from the United States, who's selling it to them at a premium. So they're paying more for the electricity, right, or gas, or what LNG, for example, in the American example, for less amounts, to make electricity more expensive, to degrade and demolish their own economies for the benefits of the geostrategic will and of the United States. It's so stupid. There's no self-interest being demonstrated here whatsoever. Not even for the Ukrainian sake, because the Ukrainian war is lost.
Even if
right?
there wasn't self-interest and we're helping out the Ukrainians with their struggle against the Russians, etc., the United States selling at a premium to these countries that say they are in solidarity with Ukraine and that's why they don't want to take the gas anymore from Russia shows that at the end of the day, when you remove all, depending on your perspective, either correct or bullshit arguments for why this is being done, for the United States, it's literally just increasing revenue streams by selling gas at a higher profit margin to the so-called allies, and basically replacing the Russian gas with their own. If they were really, I don't know, maybe I'm overdoing the argument, but if they were really in it for the war, for the support, blah, 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 they wouldn't be making extra money from the funneling of American gas into Europe. Hell, they could even do it at no profit because let's fully war economy shit, blah, blah, blah. But they're not doing that, which always when you follow the money, you find people's real adjusted reasons for what they do, especially when it comes to states or capitalists.
Exactly right. And one last point on the fracturing Europe stuff. Slovakia has been threatening to reduce payments to Ukrainian refugees in Slovakia as a kind of a retribution or for this particular policy. And Slovakia is already kind of unpopular because they've been more I don't want to say pro-Russian. That's not it. They just kind of been more what the fuck are we doing? Which several countries have done for their own interests or other interests. But regardless, this is not
always the refugees and immigrants that eat the dick. Yeah.
Exactly. That's my point, right? These people are not the ones who should be getting the boot for this. Regardless, though, this is, as mentioned, a very negative development for the EU in general, especially with the more unpredictable weather patterns that come with climate change. Each subsequent winter, there's a higher loads on the various electrical grids. Also, the stupid timing. It's fucking January. You'd think you'd do this in April or September or something. Why the fuck would you do this in January? You couldn't postpone this? Anyways. So we'll see what ends up. Oh, and also the final point, the degradation of income potential for European citizens across the entire EU, or just residents, whatever, is ridiculous. The amount of money that you're going to have to pay to pay electricity, which is money that could otherwise go into what the fuck else. One of the main things being consumption, because that's what drives these mostly service-based economies. Hasn't anybody not looked at this? It's a very, very silly development. But that's all I have to say.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's the joke with these parallels is always, it's 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 in this case sides all bluffing and seeing, who ends up paying for the whole poker game.
Yeah.
But this allegory works, but in capitalism, not really, because you have that famous painting with the 8 dogs playing poker. Well, imagine they're playing it, but whoever loses is a bunch of cats whose money they're actually playing with. And that's basically the rest of us. So the presidents, the prime ministers, the massive oil barons from any side of this, they're not going to fucking lose. It's you who's going to pay, foot the bill, pretty much. Herder, I know it's cliche, herder capitalism, but I guess sometimes we need to remind people, because at the end of the day, it's not about this tribal choosing, etc., etc. It's that while these tribes fight it out for their particular interests, it's always the actual members of the tribe that pay the whole fucking thing. But speaking of heads of tribes that are no longer with us, Jean-Marie Le Pen died. Most people nowadays know his daughter, but Le Pen's dad, Jean-Marie Le Pen, who just died the other day, was France's basically, how do they put it, Thatcher fail son on steroids. He co-founded the Front National in France and leaves behind a legacy that reshaped French politics despite his expulsion from the party he helped create. A Holocaust denier and former torturer during the Algerian War, Le Pen capitalized on anti-immigration rhetoric. He was kind of relatively ahead of his time. He's one of the OGs that started this, at least in Europe. He also OG'd to an extent cultural decline narratives and used the reactionary wing of identity politics to make the far right a significant force in France. His focus on law and order and anti-immigrant sentiment blended economic liberalism, as it always does, with national protectionism, appealing to both disillusioned blue-collar workers and conservative classic voters. Le Pen's political journey was marked by, like most fascists, adaptability. He initially entered politics in 1956 as a pugilist, championing small businesses, and later shifted between economic liberalism and protectionism, depending on quite literally which electorate he would talk to. He would literally go to the small city, say one thing, go to the big city, say literally the opposite. By the 1980s, under President François Mitterrand, Le Pen's visibility grew as the left sought to divide the right, and his party began attracting deindustrialized workers and conservative small employers. His infamous rhetoric, including dismissing Nazi gas chambers as a detail of history, solidified his reputation as a very, very reactionary figure. Le Pen's breakthrough came in the 2002 presidential election, where he advanced all the way to the runoff, although he was soundly defeated by Jacques Chirac. His influence persisted as his anti-immigrant and nationalist ideas were adopted at that point by mainstream politicians like Nicolas Sarkozy and many others. The far-right agenda gained further traction as French politics became increasingly focused on issues of identity and immigration, completely overshadowing economic concerns, which I hope our audience at this point has learned is kind of the whole fucking point, right? In later years, Le Pen criticized his daughter, Marine's efforts to detoxify the party's image, aka she just didn't want to touch the Holocaust shit. Everything else she pretty much kept in place, literally. And she was one of the first ones that adapted relatively progressive social opinions in order to foster very Orientalist perspectives towards why immigrant equal bad. Some might remember, some might not. She was relatively revolutionary in it with statements like, we don't want people like Hakim, right? Because they're all, for some reason, inadvertently homophobic, and we love our gays now, even though your party wanted to shoot them the other day.
We'll
and
just
we want
put them in the
protect
camps after the immigrants.
Of course.
Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, the core of his ideology remains central to the platform. Now a formidable, one needs to admit, political force. Le Pen's death marks the end of his direct influence, though, but highlights the enduring mainstream of far-right ideas in French politics. As left-wing leader Jean-Luc Mélenchon, I can never pronounce this this comrade's name, stated, while the fight against Le Pen as an individual is over, the battle against the racism, hatred, and divisive ideologies he championed continues.
I will say, when I saw
when
I saw the title of this story, I skimmed it. I was like, Le Pen dead, yo! And then I was like, oh damn! But then I saw it was like that it was the dad's like, oh, that's still good. I'll take it. But rip bozo. Gender neutral bathroom, all that stuff. See you in hell.
Exactly right.
All right, moving on. Enough of this French stuff, shall we? Let's. I think we should talk about the out of control wildfires raging in LA and Southern California. California is one of those places where nature is pretty clearly trying to tell us, like, hey, maybe don't build here. But it's got nice beaches and mild weather when you're not asphyxiating on smoke or running from literal fire tornadoes. And this is not to make light of this incredibly dangerous event, but it should be a wake-up call that this is the new norm, right? We see this often. This is one of the worst examples, but we're going to see this every year pretty much. This is the perfect storm of climate fallout and neoliberal refusal to do anything about it will ensure that these disasters will continue to get worse, all right? As of today, at time of recording, there are at least 5 separate fires ravaging the affected area, and they're being fed by drought conditions and high winds. The fires started on the night of the 6th and have spread rapidly since then. At least 5 people have been killed so far. It's estimated that number will go up, and tens of thousands of acres have been burned. It's all hands on deck for firefighters, as the largest blaze, the Palisades fire, remains 0% contained, as does the Eaton fire. So all hands on deck, of course, includes prisoners forced into fighting these fires, often without training, and being paid as little as $6 per day. So this is slavery in all but name, and it is particularly heinous in California, where there's a large criminalized homeless population, which is useful to those in power, right? So you make housing unaffordable, people become homeless, you arrest those people, you build an army of slave labor to fight the fires that are exacerbated by the climate denial of those very people in power. They benefit from their unconscionable actions, while the rest of us suffer. The LA mayor, Karen Bass, was thankfully, for once, cornered in an interview when asked if she felt guilty for being abroad during a red flag fire warning, and whether she regrets cutting the firefighting budget. A budget she could cut, of course, because of the previously mentioned slave labor. Nearly 180,000 people are under evacuation orders at time of recording, and 200,000 more under evacuation warning. You got nearly 500,000 Californians that still have no power, and people are being cautioned to avoid drinking or cooking with tap water in evacuated areas. So, best wishes to the residents of Southern California, minus a handful of people who live there. But yeah, for the most part, thoughts, prayers, and best wishes for our friends and comrades in LA and the surrounding area in this very scary period.
Did you see that tweet by that super rich guy that's literally like tweeting like, "Yo, does anybody know
Can I
private
buy firefighters?
Can I buy firefighters? Why do I have to use the firefighters everybody else uses? I want to order 7 orders of firefighter, please, on my destination." And this is we're so cooked. Like we are so in this case quite literally. No pun intended. I don't want to make fun of the situation, but
sure.
This is just like obviously private security already exists because you don't want to interact with the cops. You want literal private hitmen to shoot anybody that's close to your property. Slave labor exists, obviously, as you can see. Private militaries obviously exist. Definitely private firefighters already exist, but that's just going to be a growing industry. We're just going to see like the gap widening so much that there is going to be a private, hyper expensive small business being run by the most unhinged of fucking class traders that are 100% willing to like always be ready to deploy, and even in situations when everything is going to shit and they should as human beings utilize their expertise to help fucking everybody, will refuse to move until somebody swipes a fucking credit card. And if that's not fucking Animal Farm 1984 bullshit, blah blah blah, I don't fucking know what is. Like, do you want like kid soldiers next? Like the fuck? Like we've hit it. We've absolutely hit it. It's not a home run. We're fucking sprinting through the abyss.
No, you're right. I mean, that's what I ask people all the time. Like, can you imagine trying to pitch fire departments to an American today if they weren't already a thing? This will be paid for in common. They will come to serve anybody regardless of income. We would lose our minds. We would lose our minds. And we're getting to the point where now people are like, hey, yeah, maybe those who have the ability to pay should get first service from the firefighters. That's absolutely where we're headed.
Like gold tier, silver tier, bronze tier.
Yeah,
and then
ash tier.
On what you subscribe to, you get a better one. I mean, it's tell me if I'm wrong, Hakeem. It's basically how it works with private health insurance in most places. JT, you're in the States, depending on how premium your health service is, you get better or worse. Why shouldn't it apply to everything? Like, there you go. Conservatives listening, I'm literally giving you
run
pitches.
it like a business.
It's what's it called? It's catastrophic. And there's a reason why even in the most rabid free marketeers that have found their ways into the alleys of power. I mean, of course, it's always crazy people, but even the most rabid ones who have advocated for the strongest levels of deregulation and privatization have never thought, oh yeah, well, the firefighters should be private also, because that's exactly what will happen. They're going to basically they're going to be left on retainer around some fucking rich people's homes, and then everybody else will have like Uber Eats delivery times, kind of
with squirt guns. Yeah,
exactly right. It's a nightmare.
And you can absolutely, like, you can see it, because somebody might be listening and they're like, no, the firefighters, no matter how private, they're gonna go. Dude, how does every single fucking fast food chain in the States work? They throw out fucking billions of dollars worth of food, literally under the argument, oh, if we started giving it away, then people would like stop buying exorbitant prices for said food. So the same argument is going to be used for the private police force, for the private firefighters.
To maintain profit margins. So
exactly. If we killed all the fires, then who would need our service? That's the point. That's the.
Alas.
Moving on. We have another lovely. This is my favorite series, and we need to make a dedicated overview of all these, all the inputs of this particular list. And it is the China is now providing subsidized electronics, but at what cost? Okay, so let me talk a little bit about this. So, China, in attempts of trying to increase domestic consumption in its shift from being an export-oriented economy, this is part of several 5-year plans that they've done, and they've shifted gradually. They've done a fantastic job. But they're continuing this work of shifting towards more internal consumption, has added certain items to a list of basically subsidized electronics or trade-in electronics. So basically, you either get a discount provided by the government for purchasing, for example, a new dishwasher or an AC unit or something, or if you were to go trade in certain other items, you can get a discount on, for example, a new phone or whatever the fuck, right? And this is an interesting way of both minimizing waste, increasing recyclability, particularly of things that have components that can be recycled, the various metals that go into other older electronics which can be repurposed, as well as a drive for increasing domestic consumption. My favorite thing, though, is the framing of this development. I'm going to read you the BBC title. It says, China bets on kitchen appliances to boost economy. And in through it, they write, the country tries to boost its flagging economy. The economy has been facing several challenges. In this same article, by the way, they mention that Chinese economic growth of this year is poised to be around 5%, which they have been shooting at for like 10, 15 years. And before that was like 6 to 8 or 9%. And before that was like up to 15%, like ridiculous levels of economic growth. Meanwhile, the United States can barely break 2%. And let's not even talk about the European economies. And those, no comments there. But this is all the flagging economy, severe difficulties, all this nonsense. Regardless, the general overview basically is this. Microwave ovens, dishwashers, rice cookers, water purifiers, certain AC units, for example, phones, television, tablets, smartwatches, hybrid vehicles, electric vehicles. All these are in this system of either trade-in, like state-backed trade-in schemes, or are eligible for a discount, depending on the percentage. The percentage the BBC article gives is 20%. I've seen this 20% figure elsewhere, but also I've seen people say up to 20%, so it's unclear. And this is a policy that the Chinese government has poured $11 billion worth into. And it has seen good effects, apparently, according to both the BBC article and also China's official government website for economic news, which is interesting to note. But regardless of this, people are like, oh yeah, well, we'll see how this will end, blah, blah, blah. The biggest importance of this kind of policy is the United States continues to take more and more of an aggressive approach towards China and the development of the Chinese economy. So they're trying to throw in tariffs and a bunch of other bullshit. And the Chinese are decoupling as much as they can from the United States, to the point that I think it is like a ratio of 3-1 how dependent the United States is on China versus how dependent China is on the United States. Meaning China is far less dependent on the United States because they've pivoted mostly to their regional partners and neighbors. So that means Central Asia and Southeast Asia and the islands of Southeast Asia particularly. And of course their new investments between Latin America and Africa. And they're kind of removing themselves from the vassals of the United States and the United States itself. And this is just another step in that process where they're trying to kind of boost domestic consumption so that they can shift or finalize the shift of just being an export powerhouse, which they'll continue to be regardless, but shift that so that their internal development can be sustained by their own internal consumption, because China has one of the largest, if not the largest, I mean, it depends if you can count India, but one of the largest consumption bases in the world, right? Very interesting developments going on in China, but it really is at what cost? The Chinese are getting cheaper electronics and all base goods, but at what cost? I would love to get a fucking government subsidy to buy a fucking fridge, right? And something that they don't realize, and this is a stupid comment, this is my final point on this. The BBC article and the people who they have commenting on it are mentioning like, oh, but this will boost the purchasing and consumption of these particular products, but there's no indication that would help the general consumption base of the Chinese economy. Are you fucking stupid? If you're buying microwave ovens, right, then you're going to use things that go in a microwave oven that you would not have otherwise purchased because you lacked a microwave oven, right? Likewise with a phone. Likewise with 1,000 fucking other things. These are all vehicles for further consumption down the road. It doesn't mean that you have to buy fucking... You'd realize how stupid of a point this is. But yeah, so it's more coping, basically, about the Chinese economy. Yeah, that's my story.
The Chinese stay winning. They just fixed cavities too, didn't they? Some kind of tooth enamel thing.
Dude, they did the fucking the first diabetes. What's it called? The cure diabetes.
Damn.
The allogenic pancreatic tissue or some shit. I remember the last I read, it was the study that they were covering, which is still ongoing. The people who enrolled in the study were 6 months insulin free because they had pancreatic tissue, allogenic developed pancreatic tissue, placed into their arm, of all things. So they had basically their own endogenous insulin production back, which is incredible, because that would be, imagine how many lives, tens of millions of lives, or God knows how many Americans have diabetes, for example, and then people around the world specifically. Like,
but think of the insulin producers. Who will think of the billionaires?
Exactly, yeah. So China stay winning, okay. It's the China's art of the deal, which is like do nothing, stay winning. But yeah, absolutely. All right, Hugo, walk us into your final.
So, respectfully to Greenland, that we mentioned a few times now, a place I would obviously love to visit one day, but I never thought I'd be covering a story about you. I mean, I don't know, unless the world somehow unites by then, the wars for the forgotten continent underneath the Arctic ice is all but certain. But I hoped my great-grandchildren would have to deal with that whole shitstorm, not me, myself, and I. As I'm saying this, Trump's son has landed in Greenland to, quote, check it out for his podcast. Whatever the fuck that means.
Hold
on.
Which Trump? Which son?
They're all look the same.
It's not Baron, though, right?
Except Baron, no fucking.
I was going to say, the Greenland's going to become his Arrakis. He's going to be the Duke
Don't
of
fuck
Greenland.
with my Slavic kid, my Balkan king, bro.
Yeah.
That is our way into the White House. He's a sleeper cell agent that will be activated. But so I guess, I don't know, we should start by asking why, like, by maybe even taking it seriously. And that's what relatively concerns me. I've gone through like 15 articles by reputable, like I'm talking Financial Times, I'm talking Reuters, blah, 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 that like actually are analyzing what could come out of Trump taking Greenland if he was to go serious about it. And they're kind of looking at it from the perspective of Trump being serious about it and what actual interests he might want America to seize from the taking of Greenland. And so from those types of analyses, the U.S. has long maintained a military presence in Greenland, like the Pitufik space base, which supports missile early warning systems and satellite command operations, which is spy shit, basically. Trump's interest in acquiring Greenland obviously just resurfaced, framing it as a national security necessity to counter Russian and Chinese influence. Despite Greenland being an autonomous Danish territory, Trump's aggressive rhetoric, including refusing to rule out military action, has drawn mixed reactions. Denmark, while insisting Greenland is not for sale, has shown willingness to bolster its Arctic security capabilities, committing $2 billion to upgrades right now, including ships, drones, and expanded military infrastructure. The craziest kind of development that I'm still kind of recovering from, unironically, is the president of Denmark basically gave the weakest statement I've ever seen a head of state do ever. Another country's president just said that they would like to take your territory. And she responded, find this online. She responded by saying, quote, "We must keep in mind that on one side, this is a good thing, that there is growing interest from the American side on what is going on in the North Atlantic and in the Arctic," end quote. I'm not much of a patriotism guy, but that's straight up treason. That is literal treason. The executive body of your state is reacting to the executive body of another state saying, we would like to take your territory. And she comes out to do a national fucking statement. And she says that's good. Because,
Doofus
I don't
behavior.
know, scary other countries come here very bad. But yeah, quite the timeline.
I guess my question there is, what benefit would it have to the United States to actually take Greenland versus just continuing to strong-arm these clearly very weak-willed people into maintaining our military base and stuff?
I mean, you could expand military bases as the ice caps melt. A lot of new deposits of rare earth minerals, oil, et cetera, will probably be found on that territory if potentially in the very long term, the treaty that keeps the Antarctic neutral territory kind of starts falling through. It would be a very decent point from which to launch military operations, et cetera. I doubt that, Trump is thinking this way. Because from that perspective, if you're a nationalist, it would make sense. But obviously, if you're unhinged and you think that people should die so that your state can put more guns on place and extract more resources. But let's think like nationalists for a second. But I don't think Trump is doing it for that reason. He's doing it because why the fuck not? YOLO. Big, strong man. Who the fuck is going to resist? Hell, they have the Danish government. Tell me, have you ever heard something like this? At least in the last 30 years, of a government being take our shit.
All you had to say was no. That's a very
the Canadians
soft
to an
statement.
extent they're replying. You have people that are in the government. They're fuck off. What if we take your territory? Blah blah blah. This is again just a political jingoism of to get everybody wants to get votes. But still you are head of state. You're supposed to be Denmark über alles or whatever they used to say. And and yet she comes and she's like, our shit, your shit, man. Fuck
This is going to be the funniest war ever. the U.S. is going to fight its first war in a very, very long time on its own soil against its hat and its pants, Canada and Mexico, and then Denmark flying suicide runs from over the ocean. It's going to be so funny.
Who saw it coming? And somebody like it was great. Somebody in my chat. I'm gonna plug. Check out Yugopnik on Twitch. You guys plug your videos all the time. Check out Yugopnik on Twitch.
Yeah.
But somebody said, they kept screaming about an aggressive foreign power that is threatening the West. Turns out the aggressive foreign power that is threatening the West is in the West.
Yep. Well, we'll see what happens, but interesting times, interesting times. I just want content. That's all I want at this point. Like, it's not gonna get better. I just want content.
Imagine high quality production second thought videos of but no, first thought as well. Oh my god.
Ooh, on the ground first thought?
Dude, what would happen if US invaded Greenland, and what would happen if US invaded Canada?
Okay, there's some
kind
content.
of LARPy videos, but I think they would kind of pop off, actually.
You heard it here first, folks. Stay tuned.
Absolutely.
All right, let me give you my last story of the day. The U.S. Congress is expected to pass legislation sanctioning the ICC for issuing an arrest warrant for Netanyahu. Yeah, the last time this bill was voted on, which was in June, 42 Democrats sided with the Republicans, seeking to punish the court for daring to step out of line.
Of course.
Yeah. It's very obvious, but this time the bill is expected to go through. And the Republican majority leader has promised it'll be on Trump's desk by the time he takes office. So a week one bill, which is a very important thing. So historically, ICC has been a tool of imperial legitimization, seeming to time and again find all enemies or geopolitical rivals of the Western powers to be dictators or criminals.
But very often they fucking
sometimes,
of course,
right? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Sometimes that is accurate. This time, however, the court has gone rogue. And it's pretty telling when you look at Western reporting. So Fox News, for example, says, Khan's application was unprecedented. The first time the criminal court has sought arrests for Western allied officials. So they're just saying it out loud now, which is like, come on, guys, you gotta... And these are true believers.
For the not for me, it's the fight. It's the typical, This was made for the browns and blacks, not
exactly. Yeah, which is fine to say.
Off whites too. Yeah. We got a lot of hit stickies from
exactly. But anyway, for those who somehow missed it, back in November, the ICC determined that Netanyahu and the now former defense minister Gallant had, quote, committed the war crime of using starvation as a method of warfare and crimes against humanity of murder, persecution, and other inhumane acts as a direct perpetrator acting jointly with others. The chamber also found reasonable grounds to believe that they are each responsible for the war crime of intentionally directing attacks against civilians as a superior. End quote. Needless to say, this ruling sparked outrage among the U.S. ruling class. Government officials, most of them heavily lobbied by AIPAC, were quick to condemn the court as, quote, illegitimate, including those who cheered the announcement of the warrant for Russian President Vladimir Putin not too long ago. This latest bill, it's called the Illegitimate Court Counteraction Act, aims to sanction any foreigner working to investigate, arrest, detain, or prosecute U.S. citizens or those of an allied country, so Israel. So the International Criminal Court, arrest my enemies, cool and good. Arrest my war criminals, bad. And we're going to sanction and maybe invade if we feel like it. So
invade the Hague Act or the fuck, yeah.
The Hague Invasion Act, look it up, it's a thing. But this is the latest in an interminable line of U.S. actions backing Israel to the hilt against the will of the American people, against the basic tenets of human decency, and, of course, against everything the United States claims to stand for.
Exactly right. And let's finish off with a beautiful Israeli sob story. I hope you're ready.
Let's go.
I can't put my life on hold, says an Israeli war-weary reservist, so war criminal, looks as an Israeli war-weary reservist looks for an end to fighting, and that means reservists, plural, of course.
Sure.
I'm just gonna read you bits of this, I think, because you'll get most of the commentary is the actual content of the article. Israel's war on multiple fronts has not just worn down its enemy, it's not just taken the lives of thousands of civilians in Gaza and Lebanon, it's also continued to extract a price from its own people. First of all, lives of thousands of civilians, you mean tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands almost.
Yeah.
At this rate, it's 186,000 people in Gaza are dead, believed to be at least, as a result. And this was by investigation by the Lancet from several months ago, so the figure is higher. I don't know if you keep track of like the daily news, but it's almost every day is like 12 people, 35 people, just civilians killed by the Israeli war machine in Gaza, and that doesn't even mention the levels of people who die from either exposure to the elements, from illness, from lack of access to medications, or so on and so forth, right? Regardless, there's a growing sense of war weariness in Israel. What do you think is going on in Gaza? Right? Boo-hoo, yeah, exactly right, war weariness. And then they mention, the recent ceasefire deal in Lebanon will be a relief for many, not least for Noam Glukovsky. Oh, of course, very Middle Eastern name, very, or like West Asian, North African, relevant to the region. Noam Glukovsky, an IDF reservist who spent much of the past year serving on the front line as a medic. He's 33 years old, and he says, "We can't keep doing this war for much longer. We just don't have the manpower to keep going without a clear end date and goal."
We're also running out of sunscreen.
Yeah, exactly right. I'm glad that they're mentioning this outright, though. It's like without a clear goal, end date, or goal, because there is no goal, right? All the stated goals at the beginning of the war, getting the hostages back, destroying Hamas entirely as a organization, preventing Gaza from ever becoming a threat again, so on and so forth. All of these have not been achieved. The war is ongoing. There are still rockets being fired at Tel Aviv, so on and so forth. The general standing of Israel in the world has completely collapsed. If it wasn't for the ceaseless American sponsorship of their favorite little vassal, Israel would not be a country. It would have ceased being a country 2 months into this war. Regardless, he complains that before he had to do only a few weeks of military service a year, but this past year he spent 250 days in uniform. Boo-hoo. All right, so we had to... Yeah, exactly right. This war, he said, has ripped him away from the life he knew. His plans to become a doctor have also been set back by a year. What about the many medical students in Gaza? I wonder what's happened to them. You fucking ghoul.
Maybe don't spend 250 days shooting at fuckers. Maybe.
Exactly right, yeah. And he says, I can't put my life on hold. I can't put my life on hold anymore, he said. Unless there's a dramatic change in the direction of the war, he said he wouldn't be returning to his unit. He'd had enough. So basically he's saying he's going to desert, essentially. And this is an overwhelming feeling amongst IDF reservists, who are the backbone of the Israeli military. Israel is a tiny country generally, with not a small population, but not large enough to have a professional military force. So they rely on reservists for basically everything, essentially. And the general statistic so far is that 40% of reservists are not reporting for duty. They're not showing up when they're being called.
Nice.
And they're not doing this because of a humanitarian conviction.
Sure, yeah, they're cowards,
No, it's because they're like, I want to go back to getting my dick sucked on the beach. I want to go smoke some weed. I want to go, I don't want to, I'm tired of the war crimes. I've raped and pillaged and stole and killed enough. Now I want to go to be able to sit in a cafe and, drink my sorrows.
And watch Ted Lasso, yeah.
Exactly, as the voices won't stop. Moving on from this, though, they have another sob story, and this is, of course, for a business owner. You can tell that the person who wrote this is very, tuned into the American sense of how to write articles, like these sob stories. This is a lady named Shelley, who is, I believe, American, who has a business.
Shelley,
exactly right. Who has a business in Israel. She has a food tech startup, which kill me. Fucking kill me.
What does that even mean?
They don't mention exactly what she does. They just say it's small businesses are among the hardest hit. Shelley Lotan's food tech startup is among many fighting for survival. Shelley's already had to move her business from northern Israel to avoid Hezbollah's rockets. I wonder what the people who run any food-related stuff in Gaza had to do to avoid Israeli rockets. Anyways.
Yeah, they were hit by literal rockets. She had,
by the way, Hezbollah has
motive hit.
Exactly. Exactly. But Hezbollah has systematically and continuously only targeted military targets. The only time when they'd ever attack civilians, with the very few times that they would do, is in direct retaliation to civilian strikes by the Israelis. And most of the time, their retaliation is still, funnily enough, on military targets. It's just that every accusation is a admission
confession.
or confession. Exactly right. The Israelis use civilian homes in the north after they've been evacuated as military positions. So that's what's happened. Regardless, she says 2 of her 7 employees have been called up for military service. On the morning we meet at her Tel Aviv home, which of course is stolen from her Palestinian
employees. Oh my
God.
God.
Shelley has just received more bad news. She's received a text from one of her staff whose military service is being extended. I just can't express how critical it is to have another employee missing for another month. I can't even hire someone else or solve this gap.
What am I going to do? Work?
Yeah. Oh, listen. Shelley also has to juggle family life with 3 young children. Her husband, also a reservist, has had to spend long periods away from home. So she's married to a war criminal. She has war criminals that she's employed. And they can't come back to do whatever the fuck this food tech startup is, which sounds like nonsense. It sounds like she has a cafe with a
front,
it's a cafe with a bullshit gimmick. Is what it sounds like, right? She has iPads on the tables or something, right?
Oh my God! But also, they have kids. Like if it's young, stupid Israelis who've grown up like hyper propagandized, they go to do their military service. Fine. I hope something happens to you, but fine. But if you have kids and you go and you murder people and you see what's going on in Gaza, no sympathy whatsoever.
It's not about that. None of these people deserve any sympathy whatsoever. They go because they want to kill. The Israeli population is so thoroughly, it's not even propagandized, they truly do believe this intrinsically. They view themselves as a superior race.
There's enough polls to prove this. This is
exactly right.
It's a sick society.
Us being emotional or something. It's fact.
Right. Go on Israeli TikTok and see the things that they put up gladly. How they advertise their war crimes and the races. They do the blackface regularly. I saw a video earlier today, and it's a video of a girl who had lost both her parents, so she's been recently orphaned. Astaghfirullah. And it's a video of her crying because she's sad that her parents are dead. And then you see these Israeli reservist soldiers who are doing in full blackface for some reason, despite the fact that many Palestinians are even lighter skinned than Israelis could be, right? And they're all across the spectrums. They're black Palestinians, so on and so forth. But regardless, for some reason they do full blackface and they're pretending like they're mocking her crying and whatnot. And I'm like, what kind of what kind of disgusting human being? Yeah, right. In my deepest pits of like hatred for the United States military, when I was younger, understand so I had never once wished anything bad on the American population itself, let alone American children. Yeah. Right? It was the inverse. I always kind of be like, why are they falling for this shit? I hated American soldiers, of course, but I couldn't even bring and I at least have a fucking excuse. Yeah. Right? Right? My God, now it's so what can you do? So there you go. The BBC is writing instead of reporting on actual news, it's writing sob stories for Israelis because one guy had to be serve a tour killing children in Gaza, and another one runs some bullshit business where she can't. The profits are too low because she can't get new employees. I don't fucking.
That one's wild. The other one's a classic, but that one's holy fucking shit. Yeah. I'm okay with murder, but what about profit? What about employee? Like, holy shit.
That's all right. Maybe this is the year. Boys. You never know.
Inshallah.
You never know. All right, well, there you go, everybody. There's some good news, some not so good news, some cope, a lovely roster of your new elected oligarchs for this coming administration. We hope you had a great time today. We know we did, or something. We want to thank all of you, especially our patrons, for your support. We really genuinely could not do this without you. This is a dream job for us, even though we have to, report on some stuff that's not fun, that's kind of grim sometimes. We're glad that we're able to do it because I think we can contribute something and hopefully make you guys smile along the way. So thank you for being patrons. Thank you for considering it. If you're considering it, if you do, you get lots of cool perks, including bonus episodes, exclusive episodes, even get to hang out with us once a month at the higher tiers. And, of course, access to the Discord for patrons of all levels, it's a great place to hang out, genuinely. So, thank you again, and with all that being said, this has been the Deprogram. I'm JT.
I'm Hakeem.
And I'm Yugopnik. Yeah, moose cocks.
I was gonna say, no.